The story of September 3rd, 1939 really begins 2 days earlier. On September 1st, Germany did something that shocked the world. German soldiers, tanks and planes crossed into Poland. This was a full-scale invasion. Adolf Hitler had been making aggressive moves for years. He had taken over Austria. He had taken over Czechoslovakia. But this time was different. This was not a peaceful takeover. It was a violent attack on a sovereign nation. The world watched, holding its breath to see what would happen next. Poland was not alone. Britain and France had made a promise. They had signed a pact. The pact said if Poland was attacked, they would come to its aid. This was a very serious guarantee. It was meant to stop Hitler from going too far. Leaders in London and Paris hoped this would deter aggression, but Hitler did not believe them. He gambled Britain and France would not act. He thought they would back down again, as before. The invasion was a direct challenge to their word and power. In Britain and France, people listened to their radios with growing fear. They remembered the Great War, which had ended only 2 decades earlier. In London, the British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain had tried very hard to avoid war. He'd met Hitler in Munich in 1938. He returned, declaring peace for our time. Now that peace was shattered. The invasion of Poland showed appeasement had failed. On September 2nd, the British government decided it had to act. They could not stand by while Poland was destroyed. Britain and France coordinated. They issued an ultimatum to Germany. An ultimatum is a final warning. Do this or else. The message was simple and direct. Germany must stop its invasion of Poland immediately. It must begin to withdraw all its troops. If Germany refused, Britain and France would honor their promise to Poland. That meant declaring war. It was their line in the sand, a final, desperate attempt. Everyone knew it was a long shot. The ultimatum was sent to Berlin. In Britain, the atmosphere was tense. Parliament met in a somber session. MPs who once backed Chamberlain now demanded action. Leo Amery shouted, "Speak for England!" The country was afraid but resolute. People believed they must stand up to tyranny. In France, the mood was the same. Daladier and the French government prepared their ultimatum. The French military mobilized reservists and moved forces toward the German border. The final hours of peace ticked away nervously. The deadline for the British ultimatum was 11 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, September 3rd, 1939. As the morning went on, there was no reply from Berlin. Hitler and his government ignored the warning completely. In London, Neville Chamberlain and his cabinet gathered at 10 Downing Street. They waited by the phone. The minutes ticked by slowly. The deadline arrived, and still there was no word from Germany. The moment had come. At 11:15, Neville Chamberlain went to the radio studio. He prepared to speak to the nation. He explained the ambassador had handed the final note that morning. It demanded withdrawal from Poland.
I have to tell you now, no such undertaking has been received, and consequently, this country is at war with Germany.
For the man who had worked so hard for peace, these were heartbreaking words. Across Britain, people huddled around their radios. The speech was broadcast live. The announcement was met with grim resignation. There was no cheering. People were anxious, scared, but determined. Minutes later, air raid sirens wailed across London. It was a false alarm, but terrifying. For everyone, the reality of war hit home. The quiet Sunday morning had been shattered. A few hours later, it was France's turn. France had issued its own ultimatum with a 5 o'clock deadline. They received no reply. At 5 o'clock, France officially declared war on Germany. 2 great powers were now formally at war with Germany. The declarations of war on September 3rd, 1939 marked a pivotal moment in the 20th century. This was the day that the Second World War truly began for Western Europe. While the fighting had started in Poland 2 days earlier, this was the day the conflict escalated. The decisions made by Britain and France showed there were limits to aggression. They signaled the policy of appeasement was officially over. A declaration that democratic nations would fight to defend their values, protecting smaller countries from powerful, aggressive neighbors, a stand against tyranny. The immediate aftermath was strangely quiet in the West. The phony war. Britain and France were at war, but no major battles on the Western Front for months. Armies mobilized and stared across the border. The all-out fighting people expected did not happen right away, creating a strange sense of unreality. But at sea, the war began almost immediately. On the day war was declared, a German submarine sank the passenger liner SS Athenia. Over 100 civilians died. The emotional impact was profound. In Britain, children were evacuated from cities to the countryside. Gas masks were distributed to every man, woman and child. Blackout curtains were put up in every window to hide cities at night. Life changed overnight. A national unity emerged, born of fear and duty. People knew a long, difficult struggle lay ahead. The hope for lasting peace that had defined the 20s and 30s was extinguished that Sunday morning, September 3rd, 1939, the day the world chose to fight back. The failure to stop Hitler earlier had led to this terrible necessity. The declaration set the stage for a 6-year global conflict of unimaginable destruction. But it was also the start of a fight that would end in the defeat of Nazi Germany. A day that changed history. When diplomacy fails, sometimes standing up for freedom requires the ultimate sacrifice.